19.3 inches. That's not a forecast. That's what actually fell in Syracuse, New York in a single day. December 30th, 2025. An all-time record. Not for the month. Not for the year. An all-time single-day record. And that number is still climbing. Liverpool, New York, just outside Syracuse, measured almost 2 feet. The airport recorded 24.2 inches. Central New York near Utica saw 14 inches. These aren't predictions I'm making. These are measurements from people's driveways this morning. But here's what nobody's talking about. While Syracuse was setting records, Delaware woke up to snow that nobody expected. Maryland got a surprise dusting. The Eastern Shore is reporting snowfall right now. This storm did something forecasters didn't see coming. And what's about to happen over the next 72 hours could catch even more areas off guard. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a comment with your city and state. At the 8-minute mark, I'm breaking down why some areas got surprise snow while others got nothing, and your location helps me understand who needs this information. At the 14-minute mark, I'm explaining what's different about next week's pattern that could finally bring winter weather to areas that have been left out all season. December 31st, 2025, New Year's Eve. And Mother Nature is delivering one of the most significant lake effect events of the entire season, while simultaneously catching areas off guard that weren't in the primary forecast zone. Now, let me talk about what's actually happening and what's coming. Because this storm is creating conditions that are catching even experienced winter travelers off guard. The snow event hitting the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast right now is a fast-moving clipper system combined with intense lake effect. This is the kind of storm that creates dangerous travel conditions, not because of massive accumulation everywhere, but because of snow squalls. Snow squalls are narrow bands of extremely heavy snow that develop quickly, reduce visibility to near zero, and create whiteout conditions in minutes. One moment you can see fine, the next moment you can't see the front of your car. That's what people are dealing with right now. Someone commented about driving from Syracuse to Watertown last night. They said it was real fun with heavy sarcasm. Another person described the white-knuckle driving between Central Square and Adams, New York, where visibility goes from decent to nothing in seconds. They've pulled over in Central Square multiple times and had a good cry after getting through nasty squalls. This is real. This is dangerous. This is why I emphasize these events even when total accumulation isn't measured in feet. Interstate 90, Interstate 80, Interstate 75, these corridors are seeing snow squall after snow squall today and tonight. If you're traveling, you need to be prepared for sudden changes in visibility. Slow down before you enter the squall, not after. Increase following distance dramatically. Turn on hazard lights so cars behind you know conditions ahead are bad. And if visibility drops to near zero, the safest thing to do is get off the highway if possible, or pull far off onto the shoulder, turn on hazards, and wait it out. Snow squalls typically last 10 to 20 minutes. Waiting is safer than driving blind. Now, let's talk about the lake effect that's creating these record totals. Lake effect snow requires 3 things: cold air flowing across relatively warm lake water, sufficient distance across the water, which we call fetch, and wind direction that points the moisture at land. Right now, all 3 conditions are perfect for areas downwind of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. Northwest winds are howling. The lakes are still open water at around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The air flowing across them is in the teens. That temperature difference creates massive instability. Moisture evaporates off the lake, rises rapidly, cools, and dumps as snow. When these bands set up and don't move, you get phenomenal accumulation in very localized areas. Syracuse, Watertown, the Tug Hill Plateau, these areas are in persistent bands right now. Someone mentioned Tug Hill specifically and said I should use that name instead of saying between Syracuse and Watertown because Tug Hill averages over 200 inches of snow per year and deserves recognition. You're right, Tug Hill is legendary. It's the snowiest place east of the Rockies. When northwest winds cross Lake Ontario, Tug Hill gets absolutely buried. We're looking at an additional 1 to 2 feet through Thursday night in the most persistent bands. Some locations could approach 30 inches total from this event. Buffalo is in a similar situation with Lake Erie. The bands are setting up south and southeast of the city. Localized areas could see 20 to 30 inches through Friday. Erie, Pennsylvania, same story. 18 to 30 inches depending on exact band position. Northwestern Pennsylvania also deserves mention. Someone commented that they're not Western New York and Mother Nature loves dumping snow on them. You're absolutely right. Lake Erie effect hits you just as hard as Buffalo, and sometimes harder. But here's what's important to understand about lake effect. It's incredibly localized. You can have 3 feet in one town and 6 inches 5 miles away. It all depends on where the band's set up. So when I give ranges like 18 to 30 inches, that's accounting for whether you're directly in a persistent band or between bands. For areas outside the primary lake effect zones, this system is bringing lighter accumulation but dangerous conditions. Chicago already has about 2 inches on the ground. Fort Wayne is in line for snow this afternoon and evening. Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, you're all seeing accumulation today. Total amounts won't be huge. Coating to 3 inches for most areas, maybe 5 inches in spots. But the snow squalls are the concern. They can happen anywhere within this broader snow shield. Indianapolis sees snow tonight. Central Pennsylvania gets clipped. Even parts of West Virginia and Kentucky see some light accumulation. Now, I promised at the 8-minute mark I'd explain why some areas got surprise snow. We're past that, so let me deliver. Delaware woke up to snow that nobody expected. Maryland got a surprise dusting. The eastern shore has snow falling right now. These areas weren't in the primary forecast zone for this system. What happened is the southern edge of the snow shield ended up further south than models indicated. This happens with fast-moving clippers. The exact southern extent of precipitation is hard to pin down until the system is already developing. So areas that were forecast to stay dry or see maybe a few flurries ended up with light accumulation. Not a lot. We're talking a dusting to maybe an inch. But when you're not expecting any snow at all, even a dusting is surprising. This is also a reminder that forecasts have margins of error. The core of the event, the heavy lake effect zones, those were well forecast. But the edges of events, the transition zones, those can shift. Now, let's talk about temperature, because the cold behind this system is significant. Minnesota and Wisconsin are looking at temperatures 20 to 25 degrees below normal tomorrow morning. Wind chills could approach -20 in spots. The Northeast sees similar cold Thursday morning. Temperatures 30 degrees below normal are possible in parts of upstate New York. This is dangerous cold. Frostbite risk is real. At -20, wind chill, exposed skin can get frostbite in 30 minutes. If you have to be outside, dress in layers, cover all exposed skin, no exceptions. Someone from western Minnesota commented that temps are dropping dramatically from 30 degrees to single digits this evening. Another person said regarding the frigid temps, now the rest of the country gets to briefly feel what northern states have been dealing with since Thanksgiving. You're not wrong. The upper Midwest has been in a deep freeze for weeks. This cold snap spreading east gives other regions a taste of what you've been living with. Check on elderly neighbors during cold like this. Make sure they have heat. Make sure they're okay. A 5-minute welfare check could save a life. Also, thoughts and prayers for everyone delivering propane and heating oil right now, for plow drivers working around the clock, for first responders dealing with accidents and emergencies in these conditions. These are the people keeping everyone else safe and warm. They deserve recognition and gratitude. Now, let's shift to what happens after this system moves out, because that's where the pattern gets interesting. Friday and Saturday, conditions improve for the Midwest and Ohio Valley. The clipper moves out. Lake effect starts to wind down. Temperatures moderate slightly. Still cold, but not as brutal. The West Coast sees active weather. Storm after storm hitting California, Oregon, and Washington. Rain for lower elevations. Snow for the mountains. This is good news for drought conditions and water supply. But by early next week, Monday through Wednesday, the pattern shifts, and this is where areas that have been left out all season need to pay attention. The jet stream starts to dip further south. Not just into the northern U.S., further south than we've seen consistently this winter. When the jet stream dips south, it pulls cold air with it. And when Pacific moisture starts crossing the Rockies into that cold air, we get storm systems. First storm looks to arrive Tuesday. Could bring snow to the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Rain and possible severe weather to the Ohio Valley and Southeast. Too early for specific details, but the pattern supports it. By late next week, Thursday through Saturday of next week, the pattern could support more significant systems. And here's what's different from earlier in the season. The models are showing the southern branch of the jet stream activating. This is the subtropical jet that normally runs across Mexico and the extreme southern U.S. When it activates, it brings Gulf of Mexico moisture northward. When that Gulf moisture meets Arctic air, you get winter weather in areas that don't normally see it. Oklahoma, Tennessee, Kentucky, northern Arkansas, northern Texas, even the Carolinas and Virginia, all of you are in the potential zone for late next week into the following week. I'm not making promises. I'm showing you the pattern potential. Someone from Tennessee commented, "If we don't get at least one good snow this year in the Tennessee Valley, I am going to cry." Someone from South Carolina said, "Us boys in SC would just like to see the 0.3 inches. Gonna have to vacation in the Northeast just to see some snow." I hear the frustration. You've been watching snowfall everywhere, but where you are all winter. The pattern for the first week of January doesn't change that. But the second and third weeks of January show different signals. The setup that brings Gulf moisture meeting Arctic air. That's your hope. It's not guaranteed. Models can still change. But the atmospheric indicators, the Arctic oscillation, the North Atlantic oscillation, the jet stream configuration, all of it is pointing toward a pattern shift in mid-January that favors your areas. Baltimore. I see your comments too. Baltimore gets gypped every single storm. You're in that frustrating zone where you're too far south for lake effect, too far north for Gulf moisture systems, and right on the edge of coastal storms that either hit you or miss you by 50 miles. Mid to late January, when coastal storm potential increases, you're in better position. But I understand the frustration of watching forecasts that show potential and then storms track just to your north or just to your south. Missouri, Kansas City specifically, someone wished it would snow there. You're in a similar boat. First week of January doesn't look favorable, but as we get into mid-January and the southern jet activates, your chances improve. Southern Vermont asked when they'll get snow. You're close enough to the Clipper tracks that you should see multiple light events through early January. The big coastal storms that would bring you substantial accumulation, those look more likely in mid to late January. Now, let me address the other concern I'm seeing in comments. Model consistency. Someone said, models flipped. Was going to be cold and snow, then blowtorch for January. Another person said, models have sucked this year. Best to look 5 days out. However, this year it's been different in 48 hours and less. You're describing the challenge of forecasting and blocking patterns. When you have high pressure stuck over Greenland or the Arctic, small changes in that block's position create big changes downstream. Models struggle with this. They show one solution one day, a different solution the next day. The way to handle this is to focus on what's certain and be flexible about what's uncertain. Certain. The next 3 days feature snow and cold for the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast. Uncertain. Exact amounts outside lake effect zones. Exact southern extent of snow. For next week, certain. West Coast storms, pattern shift underway. Uncertain. Exact timing and position of systems that cross the Rockies, who gets snow versus rain versus severe weather. For mid to late January, certain. Pattern supports more active weather for southern states. Uncertain. Specific dates, specific storm tracks, who gets what type of precipitation. Isaiah 40:1-10 tells us, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Winter tests us. Uncertainty tests us. Waiting tests us. But we're not alone in it. We prepare. We stay informed. We help our neighbors. And we trust that God is in control even when the weather models are not. Speaking of preparation, let me give you practical action items based on where you are. If you're in lake effect zones right now, Buffalo, Syracuse, Erie, Watertown, Tug Hill, you know what to do. This isn't your first rodeo. But even for experienced snow areas, rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour create problems. Don't let familiarity breed complacency. Keep driveways and walkways clear. Roof load is a concern when you're stacking multiple feet of wet snow. Check on elderly neighbors who might need help. If you're traveling through the Midwest or Ohio Valley today, or tonight, monitor conditions constantly. Have emergency supplies in your vehicle. Blanket, food, water, phone charger, flashlight. If you get stuck or stranded, these could save your life. If you're in areas that might see winter weather next week, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, Kentucky, Arkansas, Carolinas, Virginia, use this week to prepare. Check your pipes. Wrap exposed ones. Know where your water shutoff valve is. Have food and water for 3 days. Make sure you have heat sources that work if power goes out. Southern infrastructure isn't built for winter weather the way northern infrastructure is. Even minor events create major disruptions in your areas. 2 inches of snow in Atlanta causes problems that 10 inches in Buffalo doesn't. It's not because you don't know how to handle it. It's because your region doesn't have the equipment and infrastructure designed for it. So when I say prepare, I mean it seriously, not panic, preparation. Before I close, let me address one more comment. Someone said I really don't like keeping up with a month's worth of weather in one sitting, especially since my area is never mentioned. I understand. These forecasts try to cover a lot of ground because viewers are spread across the entire country. If I focused only on one region, I'd leave out everyone else. But here's what I'd encourage. Use these forecasts for the big picture pattern. What's the jet stream doing? Where are storm systems developing? What areas are favored for what type of weather? Then use your local forecasts for the specific details for your immediate area. Think of my forecasts as the strategic overview, and local forecasts as the tactical specifics. Both have value. Both serve a purpose. And if your area isn't mentioned by name, it's not because I don't care about you. It's because I have 15 minutes to cover weather for 330 million people across an entire continent. I hit the major cities and the major weather stories. Everything else gets covered in the regional overviews. If you found this forecast valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you could click the like button. It helps others find this information. Subscribe if you haven't. This pattern is changing rapidly. I'm posting daily updates. You'll want to stay informed. Share with people who need it. Someone traveling today who doesn't know about snow squalls. Someone in the south who needs to know winter weather might finally arrive next week. Someone elderly who needs a reminder to prepare for cold. And comment your city and state if you haven't already. It helps me understand who's watching and what areas need coverage. Key takeaways from this forecast. Syracuse set an all-time single-day snowfall record, 19.3 inches. Lake effect continues through Thursday with additional feet of accumulation possible. Snow squalls are the major danger today and tonight. Sudden whiteout conditions. Hazardous travel. I-90, I-80, I-75 corridors all at risk. Dangerous cold follows this system. Wind chills to -20 possible. Frostbite risk real. Pattern shift next week. Southern jet stream activates. Areas left out all season have potential in mid to late January. Models have been inconsistent. Focus on short-range certainty. 3 to 5 days reliable. 7 to 14 days pattern ideas. Beyond that, possibilities not guarantees. Psalm 121 verses 1 and 2. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Winter is hard. Waiting is hard. Uncertainty is hard. But our help comes from the Lord. We prepare wisely. We help generously. We trust deeply. Happy New Year to all of you. Stay safe out there. Stay warm. May God bless and protect you and your families through this winter. I'll see you in tomorrow's update.